TV umpire to director, we have a player review. Can we rock and roll, please?
Hello and welcome to yet another edition of the Bits and Pieces Cricket Podcast. As always, coming to you at the start of the week from around the world. On the panel today, to start with, the man who peaked before peak Bangalore became a thing when he launched Silk Board Junction, the world's first verified traffic jam handle on Twitter. Welcome to the pod, PGK, also known as Praveen Gopalakrishnan.
Thanks a lot, Nitin. Let me just say that this is the first time I'm actually admitting on record that I'm the person who ran that handle. So this is going to be a special episode.
We are going to break the internet with this episode of the podcast because that, gentlemen and ladies, is a scoop. From Silkboard Junction, we go a little far away to welcome our first overseas player for this episode. It's Murli Satakopan, who has dashed out of Chennai and relocated to Portugal. Hello, Murli, all the way from Europe. How's it out there?
Oh, pretty interesting. Can't wait to play some solid Euro cricket and show my Indian strength, but so far so good.
We also have Mohan Krishnamurthy, also an overseas player, joining us from Melbourne, where his routine long distance runs and bike trips are taking him past Shane Warne's statue outside the MCG, where he's been sending us beautiful pictures of all the tributes and gifts that people have been placing in memory of Shane Warne. Mohan, how are you doing and how is Shane Warne's statue doing today?
They're cleaning it up every day, and there are more flowers and more beer and more pies and more things being stacked into the and placed in front of the statue. The tributes that are coming in from common people to him are just quite astounding. But nice to be here to talk about cricket.
You know, I actually didn't know that they clear it every day. I just assumed the whole thing was accumulative, the photos that you were sending.
Well, I think they clear it periodically, whether it's every day or something. I don't know, because I walked past it a few times and it looks as if it's a fresh stock that's placed over there. So I'm assuming that they're clearing it up every day. So it's quite astounding. It's quite astounding that they're still going out there and paying their tributes to the great guy.
That's amazing. And I feel that this could be one of those things that just continues to happen for days together until, let's say, the ground itself or the city council or someone, puts out a law saying you can't be littering, etc. I have a feeling that this is going to go on for a while.
This is actually a slightly tangent from cricket, but this same problem used to happen with Oscar Wilde's grave, which is in the Père Lachaise cemetery in France. And over there, what would happen is people would come and put lipstick and they would kiss on the gravestone. And after a point, it came to a point where they're like, look, guys, this has been going on for like 50, 60 years. We have to put a stop to this. So they put a glass enclosure around it. So now people are like jumping up and trying to kiss the glass enclosure. They throw like, flowers, they throw joints, all of that stuff in the grave. I don't think people will do that for Shane. Or maybe they will.
They might. If there were a
knowing Shane Warne, they will certainly do it.
Yeah. If there were a cricketing equivalent of Oscar Wilde who could evoke that kind of emotion in people, it's definitely Shane. So yeah, this is great to know. Lovely to see this continuing to happen. We of course sorely miss Shane Warne, and we did an episode on that last week. You should catch up on that if you haven't already. I am Nitin Sundar. This is Sunday morning on the 13th of March. We are recording a few hours before day 2 of the pink ball test between India and Sri Lanka, which has already gone pear-shaped for the teardrop island. Gents, quick thoughts?
Not day 2, Nitin. You mean final day. Don't say day 2.
and for a brief while yesterday, it felt like day 1 could be the last day because we had 16 wickets falling, which apparently is a record for a day-night test match. The number of wickets that have fallen on day 1 of a day night or day night 1 of a day night test match. Maybe that's the right way to say it. But quick thoughts on Sri Lanka's predicament, guys. What's happening here? I feel they've actually competed in this series for exactly half an hour, and that's the half an hour it took to sing their national anthem.
Let me start by saying that it's quite incredible the contrast in the pitches being prepared that are in the current tests in Pakistan and Bangalore. The contrast cannot be starker than what we've seen. And maybe and the other point I want to make is that I don't know if India has cracked the day-night pitch yet. 4 of the top 7 most wickets that fell in a single day are in Indian day-night tests. But Pakistan certainly hasn't cracked the pitch at all, is what I can say. They need to find some cracks in the pitch.
We should spend a section of this podcast talking about the Pakistan pitches. But before we get there, right, I wonder if it is more just a function of the way Indian pitches in general, even in day test matches, have been behaving in the last few years. Right, we've had a lot of wickets. The Indian fast bowlers have been doing fantastically, and the spinners have of course been on top of their game. So wickets just seem to be tumbling all the time in India when test matches are happening.
You know, this is actually a great point where last night I read this amazing piece by Andrew Fiddle Fernando for Cricket Info. And Andrew Fiddle Fernando typically writes about, he has a Sri Lankan perspective of cricket, right? I think I really like the fact that even the Sri Lankan correspondents have basically said, look, our entire team is like one mess. So there's no point trying to analyze this, etc. We might as well write what we want to and write humor columns about how it feels like to be clobbered by India, which is what he's been writing for the last few days. And it is quite nice. And I'll just read out a couple of paragraphs for you. Andrew Fiddle Fernando, and the title of the article is Relentless India Make Mockery of Pitch, Conditions and Sri Lanka. Batters who will take on the short ball early. Batters who will leave judiciously, defend until the bad balls come. Others who charge out onto the crease, reverse pressure, seize a passage of play by the collar. Yet more who soak up balls at first, switch up through the gears, farm the strike, shepherd the tail. He is making this point that whatever you need, India has it. He says it as a sledgehammer, a scalpel, a bandsaw, a stick of dynamite, a lockpick, any tool they need, whatever it takes to tear the opposition down on any conditions that present itself. If the batters don't get you, the bowlers will, except most of the time, the batters and the bowlers will get you. And if anything, the bowlers will do the getting of you even harder than the batters. And the whole article is just about what it feels like to play this Indian team at home when it is just, you just give them anything, any little bit of a condition that goes their way, whatever it is, they'll find a way to exploit it and destroy us. And it's just so, I mean, it's so weird reading this article as an Indian fan who grew up in the 90s, because I'm like, I never thought people would write articles like this about Indian cricket ever. But that's where it has reached. I mean, India at home has just reached, we just take it for granted now, but it's just impossible. I am struggling to think of a team that will now beat India at home. Even Australia that's going to come at the end of this year. I mean, I don't want to jinx anything. I'm not optimistic. I don't think they can put up much of a fight.
The article that he wrote at the end of the first test was hilarious.
It was brilliant
as well. It was brilliant. So to be able to write that is says a lot about him. I'm really enjoying reading his pieces about Sri Lankan cricket and the specific view that he tends to have these days, that we are screwed. I mean, we're just going there to be a whipping boy wherever we go, right? And that's the kind of tone that he carries into his article all the time.
You talk about India owning, other teams. The only exception, and I kept thinking, who's that last team that scored a monster here? And only this Route 200 in Chennai is that mammoth total comes to mind. It was a special exception amongst anything, because it needed that kind of a performance to beat India. Because after that, the next time they beat us in 2 days. We said, England, okay, that's it. We're done with you. 2 days is all we'll take to beat you. No more. So we are a monster here in at home.
No, and the insane thing is we are doing it despite the team not batting as well as it should. We've been talking about this for ages now. Of course, the middle order has now been changed over. You've got Rahane and Pujara out and you've got replacements in. Interestingly, the problem is a lot against spin, right? And the best players of spin right now in India arguably are Shreyas Iyer, Mayank Agarwal and Rishabh Pant, I feel, right? And Shreyas Iyer on day one yesterday was phenomenal. The bowling wasn't great, must be said. It was a turning pitch. The ball was doing a lot. But the way he came out and took the bowling on was just something else.
And talking with Pant is a nice segue. But the only thing that I say, what's going on is, Pant coming in at number 5. I still don't get that. It's worked in the sense that Shreyas Iyer has come in at number 6 and done what he needs to do. But I don't know what the thinking is there. And it's got some weird, for me, sort of Sujit Somasundar, Vijay Bharadwaj feels to it. It's just something that you need to do because you want to sound funky.
Guys, you're reading too much into this, Mohan. This is just one test match. They just looked around and said, hey, who wants to go 5? You or you? Padil like, hey, I'll go. Okay, fine, you go. I'm assuming it was exactly that. Wasn't particularly thought through. Like, this is the kind of stuff that Shreyas Iyer did yesterday. You would never get a Rahane to do this, ever. Because it was just him realizing that this test is a certain kind of a test. This ball is a certain kind of a ball. This is a day night in a certain situation. This pitch is in this situation. I see. Okay, so now what I have to do is I have to turn on that T20 mode and I have to do it in this way when the team is in this thing with the tail ender. Like even Andrew Fernando writes that of the last 47 runs that India score, 42 of them are scored by Shreyas Iyer and 6 at will. So these are the kind of stuff that only this now you're seeing the real exciting part of what T20 and ODI is doing for Test cricket. So Pant is like the first proto version of that, and now you're seeing someone like a Shreyas Iyer do this. So it's really, really exciting.
Also, I don't think the one big reason Rahane and Pujara can't do this is this requires scoring runs. That is that's a fundamental difficulty already. Past that is T20 mode, whatever else mode. And also, I think Shreyas Iyer said he came with a plan, right? He saw that mid-on was up and then they pushed mid-wicket out. So he intended to go down the wicket against the spin and hit him over and all that. Panthanal doesn't think that. He says, if you toss it, I will hit it out. That's all. There is no real plan per se. So combined with that third 9 of 26 from him and that unleashing from Shreyas, it gave us a score for us to play and a follow-on to give.
and I'm very thankful that did not happen, because I'm going to watch day 2 in a few hours, and I was really worried that the test match might be all done and dusted on day night 1 itself. Our good friend Tony Sebastian has flown in from Bombay as well to watch this test, and he was in the stands yesterday. I'm hoping that he flashes a bits and pieces chart, a banner sometime to try and make our podcast go even more viral than it already is.
And if he does, we'll include it in the show notes. We briefly talked about Cheteshwar Pujara, and I think I should mention this. He's actually signed up for Sussex for the summer, but I hope he finds his form again, because I think to have that competition in that middle order is always good. To have people like Rahane and Pujara knocking on the doors and keeping the current incumbents honest, I think is definitely not a bad thing. But yeah, so he's actually been signed up by Sussex.
Yeah, you mentioning Pujara signing up for Sussex reminds me that he's actually going to miss out on India's premier cricketing tournament, right, which is upon us. I of course mean the Ranji Trophy, not the IPL, which where Pujara of course is also missing out on a CSK contract. But the Ranji Trophy has been underway now for the last few weeks. Mohan, what is happening out there since you're tracking
look, the initial. So I've been following it on and off. I've not been following it as closely as I probably would like to, due to a variety of reasons. But one of the things that happened initially was I was keen to see how some of the newer players would do. So Yash Dhull started well, and I don't think he's continued that form. I think, in fact, Delhi might miss out on a quarterfinals berth. It's kind of touch and go at the moment. Srishanth said initially that he wasn't going to play the Ranji at all, but then he's actually played, and he's actually done reasonably well. So that is a good one.
So wait, who's doing well?
Who's doing well?
Teams and
Vishnu
individuals.
Solanki. Oh, Jharkhand is doing fantastic. So Jharkhand is the news of this Ranji. It's just amazing. Yeah, amazing. They're playing some amazing cricket.
And I believe Kerala has been doing well as well, or has Tony Sebastian been weaving stories in his mind?
Let's put that down to Tony.
Yeah,
actually,
Tony,
Kerala has been
every
doing
day is
reasonably
sending
well.
a message. Dude, Kerala is doing really well. It's like, oh, okay, good for you, Tony.
But there's a player called Vishnu Solanki who has been doing really well, and after twin tragedies, and I think he lost his daughter tragically, and he's come in and played for Baroda and hit a century for them against Bengal. So there are some good stories. I'm sort of following some of it, but not as I said, not as closely as I would like to do. Yeah, so that's a bit of a roundup.
My biggest question around Indian cricket and its upcoming talent is, how do you pronounce Yash Dhull? Is it Yash Dhull or is it Yash Dhull? I've heard both and I don't know now. It's India's own Labuschagned. Like, who knows how do you pronounce this name?
I think we have to wait for VVS Lakshman to come back into the commentary and tell us how it should not be pronounced, and then we know how it will be pronounced.
And actually, then you need Arsha Bhogli to come and tell you how it actually needs to be pronounced. It's a beautiful name.
You will all get stymied when VVS Lakshman will call him Yudhishthir for like an entire segment. Then we'll, what?
Yudhishthir. Sticking to Ranji, it's good you mentioned Ishant, saying that he's not going to play and then showing up, which means he has done the exact opposite of Srishanth, who said he's going to play Ranji Trophy, played a game or a couple of games, and has then announced his retirement.
In the air, Srishan takes it. India win. Unbelievable scenes here at the bull ring.
Thoughts on Srishanth's retirement, guys?
I was, to be perfectly honest, I was surprised that he actually played. And I think he came in just to show that he's got cricket left in him, and promptly took a wicket. And as I said in the previous podcast, promptly took one wicket, did ayappa and retired, kissed the pitch, and then promptly retired. I'm not at all surprised that he's gone. I was quite shocked that he actually played, given all the things that he did in that tournament that you guys seem to like. I don't know why, but yeah. After all that, it's good that he's going. That's all I can say.
Why do you not like the World T20 where Srishan took the great catch to win it for us, Mohan?
He's also done some dances on the pitch too, so he's got his moments. But before you go deep into analyzing this, I want to add two key anecdotes to his retirement, because it's not that easy to park. Okay, when they asked him about it, his first problem was that he did not get the Ranji send-off he deserved, he said, which was his biggest heartbreak. Followed it up with said, of course I can still bowl at 140 consistently. I can bowl as quickly as any 19-year-old bowler. However, I do not want to eat up the place of a deserving youngster, so I am stepping back, he said. And then when asked what his further plans are, he said, I'm receiving a lot of coaching offers, but I want to focus on my film career, and my first movie in Tamil will hit in April, and the next is Kannada. So Sreesanth has his path set.
Murli, given your association with Tamil cinema, it means you're soon going to be in a shoot with Srishanth. We look forward to that.
What a huge regret that's going to be after Dhoni coming straight down to Srishanth.
The really weird part about Srishanth is, I don't know if you've read the Jared Kimber long read on Srishanth, which came out in the Cricket Monthly in 2019. So this is just when, and apparently I have listened to Kimber talk about this in some other podcast, I think, and he talks about it through how long it took him to actually write the piece, because he goes to Srishanth, he spends time with him, he just walks around with him and sees in his farmland what's going on, he goes and watches him bowl on the nets. And the really strange part is how Srishanth's body had completely changed, right? So Srishanth, ever since he had gotten out of cricket, he became a very bodybuilder kind of a person. So his entire upper body was all jacked up, and he was no longer a fast bowler. So Jared Kimber was very puzzling, how the hell are you going to come back to bowling? Look at your body. You have you look like Arnold now. How will you come and bowl? And so
I'm sure you didn't mean Russell Arnold. Yeah, go on.
Not Russell. Nobody can look like Russell Arnold. No. So now, and I'm actually quite amazed. Whatever little footage I saw, I was quite amazed that Srishanth has managed to get, his body didn't look completely out of whack. So clearly he's retiring for different reasons. But yeah, so that was my puzzlement. But I do agree that I think it was just he just wanted to come and prove a point that I can take a wicket. And they were probably not going to pick him anyway. I think that must have been some kind of an agreement and an arrangement saying that, okay, look, I'll just come, I'll play one match. Give me my farewell match. Okay, Cheta, come. Okay, I guess that's what happened.
There was this, a couple of people raised this question, would Srishanth have been, a much better bowler, a bigger force if he had emerged a few years later and played under Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri, right? As it happened, he played under MS Dhoni, and there is this famous Dhoni quote, the only person who can control Srishanth is Srishanth. Yes. It is beyond my control, and I don't think too much about it. It would have been amazing to see how Virat actually handles Srishanth on the field, right? I wonder, in a parallel universe, if Srishanth could have been a part of, Bumrah, Shami and co. He definitely had the skills, right? Amongst the best seam positions, as we've said many times. He has a really poor record, by the way. If you look at his record, he got hammered in one-day cricket. His test average is close to 40. I'm surprised he actually got so many games with that record, but it says something about India's bowling back in that era.
Oh, well, the person bowling at the other end was VRV Singh, right? So that's that's the competition that he was working with. So, but it would have been good to see him play with Shami, Bumrah, Bhuvneshwar Kumar. And in a sense, they may have even, who knows, he may have got better mentoring from people like that. I think Dhoni just left him to his own devices and didn't want to do too much with him. For all that we talk about Shastri's ills and so on, or maybe his gains, he's actually managed to give flight to players like Pant to go and express themselves, be free-spirited players and all that sort of stuff. So who knows how Srikanth would have turned up under a Shastri, Kohli type regime.
No, guys, this is not
Freudian
I
slip there. I have to point out Freudian slip. Mohan said Srikanth instead of Srishan. So just for a moment, I'm imagining Srikanth playing under Shastri. Hey, what? Yeah, that would have been fun.
Oh no, okay, never mind. So no,
Ungli dalo googly. Yeah,
I don't
go on.
agree at all. I don't think the problem you are assuming that the problem with Srishan was his temperament and all that, and he was a volatile person. I don't think it's that at all. It is that I think Srishan, like at least the spot fixing allegations and whatever I've read about it, looks fairly like interesting, persuasive. I don't think he would have fit in with this team at all. I think the problems are there. I don't think the problems were that he twirled his bat with Andre Nell. I mean, those kind of stuff, like people do that all the time. That was never the problem.
He was part of 2 World Cup winning squads. So whatever be the case, when it was required, he did deliver the goods. He caught the catch and did the dances. So I think he's got the legitimately, and a mean outswinger, an outstanding outswinger that could legitimately put people at some kind of danger. But the character was way bigger an outswinger that you didn't know which way it would swing. It would reverse, it would go behind also. You were very worried about that way more. And if MS Dhoni says I couldn't control someone, you couldn't control someone. You say okay, bye.
Yeah, we wish Srishan the best in his future endeavours. Yes, he had his moments with Indian cricket, part of 2 World Cup winning squads and part of the Indian attack when they first became world number 1 in Test cricket, I think back in 2010 under Dhoni.
Exactly.
A couple of brilliant spells in South Africa. Good luck.
And for that
to
one
Srishan.
image of a floating Jack Carlis looking completely contorted is going to remain for a while in our heads. I think we got to grant him that too. So that
To my mind, the ball of the 21st century, as it stands. I don't remember another ball, that captured our imagination in that way. So yeah, let's see where he goes next. Meanwhile, we've taken our pot shots at cricket rules in the past on this podcast, and today is a good day to talk about cricket rules because the MCC has come up with a few new laws, right? And the most interesting one is that munkading, which was always legal, has now been officially legalized. I don't even know what that means, but what they've really done is they've moved it from Law 41, which constituted unfair play, to Law 38, which is run out. And this is MCC's way of saying, hey, munkading is very legitimate. It's a way to run out a player. There is no hanky-panky involved here. Thoughts, guys? Thoughts on the whole thing?
So munkading, it's about time. It's absolutely about time. One of the things that I've really struggled with, and this happened 2 IPLs in a row, and I do follow that kind of news in the IPL.
We knew it more.
Where
these IPL gossip columns.
Munkading is official. So A, I didn't like the name. B, I didn't like the rule. It says it's a run out, and that's it.
And the funny part was, because they moved it from what comes under the topic of unfair play in the MCC manual, people who are pro-Mankad also got very angry. How the hell did they call this unfair play? What it actually meant was unfair play by the batsman, right? And the bowler being allowed to sort of check it by munkading it. So the entire commentary around this also is like people losing their steam and everything. But I completely agree with you, Mohan. About time they legalized it. And also a big slur on Venu Mankad's name. Maybe it's time to just, hand it over to the greatest all-rounder to ever play cricket and call it Jadeja going forward. Or stoking. Stoking would be a very good name for munkading, right? You're literally stoking the batsman, right? And as we all know, Stokes is the greatest all-rounder since Gary
Not to be
Souners.
confused with stroking the batsman, which is a different thing altogether. But no, okay.
That's what
I
he
think that
said.
I was going to say that the munkading thing is actually like the least controversial thing. I think that most people have reached this point where they're like, if you want to run him out, it's okay. There are just a couple of English people who pop up randomly on Twitter just to troll people. Sometimes Michael Vaughan, sometimes Stuart Broad, this to like say, no, how can you say this is illegal? I think most people have accepted it. In fact, I even think that batsmen have, they think that bowlers can do it to them, so they don't generally step out. No, the most interesting rule change was not the munkading thing. The most interesting rule change was what the ICC introduced when if they bowl at a batsman, if a bowler bowls at the batsman and the batsman hits it in the air and gets caught out and the batsman cannot cross, which means that the new batsman has to come and take strike against the bowler, which I think is interesting because now what you have done is for the first time you have basically created a rule directly as a result of the T20 influence. Because
Yes.
now what has happened is that you basically ended up in a situation where bowlers were technically starting to get punished for taking wickets and tailenders would just whack it up in the air and just try to cross. But now you can't do that. So now the bowler actually gets a reward or whatever he's supposed to get when a wicket is there. So I think that is an interesting change.
That is an interesting one. It's also good for all those selfish top order batsmen who never took the pains to cross over. They would hit it up in the air and just stand and look at the ball, right? And they wouldn't do the crossover. So now they're like, okay, you don't have to do it anymore.
Well, the other thing is, as a result of that, Gavaskar has one less thing to talk about in the commentary. So slowly they're eroding on his material. So the only thing he's going to be left with is soft hands.
Soft
No,
hands.
now they will just pass a rule that says that if you hit a boundary and after that if you take a signal, then that's it. Okay, cancelled. That's it. Then Gavaskar will
Correct.
run
Because
out of
he'll say,
that also.
you got to run. You can't be ball watching. You got to run. What will he say now?
There's
Poor
no
fellow,
point to
they're
it.
robbing him of all his inventory, right? What will he do?
Yeah, he's going to check whether batsmen are tucking their pants in and whether they're taking a single soon after hitting boundary. That should have a technical term as well. That should be called a Gavaskar, right? Just like a
Called a
marketing.
Gavaskar, right?
It's a Gavaskar. He's Gavaskar'd. Yeah.
Guys, this is Gavaskar's plan all along. Just to like come on air and keep repeating the same thing over and over again. Finally, the ICC like, okay, screw it. We just put it in the rules, man. Just stop talking. Done with this. Okay.
I like the passive aggressive approach the authorities are taking towards improving commentary quality. Why don't they just get better commentators instead of
Change the
eroding? Yeah, instead change the rule. He's talked about this so long, we don't want to hear him talk about it anymore. Actually, the one that I found most interesting amongst all the laws is that saliva has been banned. Yeah, thoughts, guys. I definitely know one person who will be breathing a sigh of relief, and that's Ricky Ponting. Imagine Ponting trying to play cricket when saliva was banned. He used to spit at everything at himself all the time. So
Coming up next, chewing gum being banned, but for the moment, saliva is banned. Look, I think there's a fallout from COVID. In COVID times, it was banned for a variety of other reasons, and now they just extended it to say, look, it makes sense.
wickets are falling all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, why not?
So, I for a brief moment I wondered if they'll come up with artificial saliva, right? And the umpire has something in a small cup, and cricketers could come and dip their fingers into it just to create the chant. Yeah, but the whole mumbo jumbo about keeping the ball shiny, it swings more. Lots of old canards getting questioned now, right? Like saliva.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like now you are just starting to wonder where, oh, there was no saliva for all this time. Everything is going fine. Now, even after they banned saliva, have you seen a single bowler come up and say, this is a bad idea, it's going to hurt? Nobody has said anything. And they'll be like, yeah, you want to ban it, you ban it, it's okay. So I guess you're right. It probably was one of those things where people believed that it helped. But now when you remove it, when you A/B test it, you're like, hey, this doesn't really make a difference. So
I have one thing to add though, having played a little bit of cricket, at least in this fifth division level in Tamil Nadu, what they normally
Murali,
do
let me
is...
interrupt you and say you are the only one who's played cricket at any level over here, so you have an
Okay.
Well, I used to shine the rubber ball when I was playing, so I mean, I have expertise as well. But no, kidding. Yeah,
So
Okay,
with these local SG red balls, at least the saliva tends to have a little bit of a sticky, slightly slimier texture to it, which means you are able to shine a little more. Now they do it with sweat, so the ball just becomes wet. So you used to bowl the dry ball, you are bowling with a wet ball. That's all. There is no shiny or not shiny at all. So with that, I felt like the saliva was of a little more value. Now we can use it on Gavaskar. That's all. There's no little.
what?
Rub saliva on Gavaskar.
Not like that. Like
Gavaskar is the saliva with saliva.
yeah. So
Well, talking of Gavaskar as a segue, we'll come back to rule changes and so on. Are we going to talk about the Gavaskar and Rajdeep Sardesai episode with Shane Warne, because we missed that last week and it happened after our podcast last week. So what happened is Rajdeep Sardesai asked him in a TV program with Gideon Haigh, who was also on the telecast at that time, whether Shane Warne, in his view, was the greatest spinner of all time. And instead of either ducking the question or swaying away from it, or saying something like, for example, this is not the right time to discuss all of that stuff, or just saying he was one of the greatest. He actually went full steam ahead and said that he didn't rate him highly, and because he didn't do well in the subcontinent and didn't do well against good players of spin, Indian cricketers, and went on to describe some test match, I think in Nagpur, where he asked his team, he was a consultant to the team, and he asked the team to not give Shane Warne a fifer, and I think Ajit Agarkar went and swung
Zahir
a ball.
Khan, apparently.
Zahir Khan, sorry, yes. Swung a ball high in the air and he got caught or something like that, and then said, and went into something meaningless in describing a fifer that Shane Warne got that he shouldn't have got. So he got a lot of stick for that, and then later on came on Instagram in his account and apologized for having made that statement, even though it was a kind of a meek apology where he said the question should not have been asked, rather than the question should not have been answered the way I did. But anyway, that was what happened in the Gavaskar Shane Warne episode. It was interesting to see Gideon Haigh also in the frame, and he was just basically, he had his head in his hands saying, how am I going to, do I respond to this? How am I going to respond to this? What am I hearing? Kind of look on his face of complete
I really
disgust,
feel bad
disdain.
for Gideon Haigh. He has written an entire book on Warne, which is a
I know.
brilliant book, by the way. And
I know.
Half
now
of
he's
Gideon's
sitting here-
DNA is actually Shane Warne's DNA. I mean, he knows Shane Warne that well, right? And
Exactly.
he has to sit
and
there
he's
and
sitting
listen
there
to
and
this.
listening to these guys talk about this. Hey, no,
And had to be gracious in response as well. He couldn't just get up and walk out, which is probably, he would have been forgiven for doing that. He may have been forgiven for doing that. But anyway, that was the episode. That was the thing that happened, and of course that broke the internet a little bit. And
I
of course,
have
people took
three
sides.
immediate thoughts to this incident, right? The first one, retrospectively, I'm happy Sunil Gavaskar was not in the commentary box in Nagpur when Zahir Khan did that. He would still be ranting about how Zahir Khan gave Shane Warne a 5-wicket haul, right? Which he should not have. That's number one. Number two, Gavaskar was wrong. He actually said Muralitharan has a better record in India, which he does not. Shane Warne's record is marginally better than Murali's record in India, and both records are bad, let's face it. No overseas spinner has consistently done well in India, which is why we still hold Graham Swan and Monty Panesar and what they did in 2011 in such high regard, because they came and won a series. As spinners, they came and won a series in India, which never happens. So using that as a yardstick anyway doesn't make sense. Thirdly, Muralitharan got played, I don't know how many, but he got about 150 wickets against Zimbabwe and Bangladesh when they were really bad teams. And Shane Warne barely played any test cricket again. I think he never played against Bangladesh, and he probably played 1 or 2 against Zimbabwe. So he had far fewer cheap wickets. You could argue that all the wickets that Warne got in the Ashes against England were equally cheap, but that's a discussion for another time. The third thought I had on what Gavaskar said was the other offhand comment he made in that interview was, casting aspersions to Shane Warne's lifestyle and saying that might have had something to do with his early demise. I think wasn't required at that point in time, especially when you don't know the details anyway. And someone on our group pointed out that Ian Chappell in his column on Cricinfo also made some sort of an allusion to that. I think these things are in bad taste and probably are not required, right? It's what it is, right? The guy's died. I think we should just let it be.
I have a problem. Why do people ask the 70-year-old grandfather anything during these really genuinely emotional times? You allow him to talk, it's a problem. Already giving him money and making him commentate is bad enough. It's a difficult time. It's a legitimately hard time for so many fans who've been through. I mean, they're still coming and putting beer bottles out there, guys. And to ask this man about Shane Warne was just a horrid thing to do, because he said nothing good. In fact, he's never said anything good ever. There it is.
And the question was definitely loaded on purpose, right? I'm pretty sure they were looking for the money quote and they got it.
But even if they were not looking, even if it was not a planned plug, if you write, to increase eyeballs on the program, I think it is the journalist's right to ask any question. It's a subject's responsibility to bring a sense of, if you like, balance into that environment. It's not the journalist's role to do that. They will ask questions of the subject, and that's up to the subject to either duck or weave, or be gracious and kind in the comments that you make. And these are words that you can never associate with. I would never associate with our friend Soft Hands.
So in the last test, Ashwin having gotten I think 5 or 6 wickets, went into the league as top 4 highest wicket-taking spinners. He beat someone to get to that spot. Do you know who he beat?
In
Yeah,
Test
of course, the
cricket.
top three. Yeah, in Test cricket, the top three are anybody's guess. So he beat someone to get to the top
Herat.
four.
Rangana Herat. Yes.
Who is somebody I think we never talk about in general when we talk about spinning greats. He had 433 wickets, 155 away, 200 and whatever 38 odd at home, and he had a 433. So Ashwin got to 436 now, and I was very surprised. The dude started very late. I mean, his career started fairly late, and he's played 93 tests and got 433 at a 20 something odd average, and I was very impressed that we barely ever talk about him in the list of
Oh, he was an amazing bowler.
There are some
Fantastic
bowlers
bowler.
and batsmen whom I call like it's like the Avatar the movie equivalent in cricket, because Avatar is like the top grossing movie of all time, but people can't even tell one dialogue from the movie, okay, because it just came and it just went, okay, because it was very forgettable. And I think a lot of bowlers and batsmen are like that. And I think so. If you look at people like say Alan Border, who talks about Alan Border as a batsman? Like when in the list of great innings, great test matches, great this thing, Alan Border, okay. No one ever says, oh my God,
Yeah.
are there any Alan Border batting fans out there? I don't think so. Michael Clark. Can't find people who are Michael Clark batting fans, And I feel like there are some bowlers who are like that as well. Rangana Herath is one of them. He can accumulate a lot of wickets, but a lot of people will just like not remember him at all. So yeah, this is the avatar of batsmen and bowlers.
I don't know how we landed up on Herat, but the one thing I remember vividly about Herat was before he actually became a permanent fixture in the Sri Lankan team, he had a chance to play against Australia in the late 90s at home. And Herat was the first bowler I remember to bowl a carom ball. Right, and he was obviously a left-arm spinner and he bowled it, and it was brilliant to watch, right? Something that pitches on off-stump and turns towards like for a right-hand batsman. And I remember Tony Greig was on air at that time, and he was going ballistic about, what is this new variation that we have never seen, right? And the carom ball, of course, became famous later. But you're right about the Avatar reference. This one thing, though, I remember so fondly about Herat. I was so happy when he came back many years later and became a fixture.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Rangana Herath's record. 93 test matches, okay. I mean, I 28 average, pretty decent. I'm wondering if he had a home and away kind of a bias. 23 at home and 38.5 away. Okay, that
Of course.
probably makes some difference.
Not too dissimilar to Ashwin, by the way.
Yeah,
In fact-
exactly.
In fact, how many left-arm spinners have very good away records, right? Even Daniel Vettori, for instance, is probably the only other person I can think of when you say left-arm spinner. Of course, there is Jadeja now, but Jadeja also doesn't have a great away record, right? It's not an easy art to sort of display.
Wow, I mean, okay, this is really interesting. I just looked at his record against teams, okay. Record versus Australia, 22.6. Bangladesh, 24. There's only one team against whom he averages above 33. Can anyone guess who?
It's obviously not India, since you
Nope,
asked
it
it
is
in this
India.
way. Oh, it is
Okay.
India. Okay.
He averages 48 against India.
Wow.
Okay, and the next second on the list is 33.
I remember series in which there was Rahul Dravid and people like that just tore into him. They Lakshman and people like that, they didn't rate in general. Ganguly's team did not rate left-arm spinners at all, which is why, in a sense, Murli Karthik didn't get an extended run. So there were many left-arm spinners that were really good in Ganguly's team, and they just did. And Herath ran up against all of them, right? So it was a bad time to play India, and I'm not surprised that his average is as bad as it is.
And I think a lot of that happened in that 2009 series where Sehwag scored 293 at home.
As well.
India scored a lot of runs in that series. I remember Murli copped a fair amount of punishment as well, and Herath as well probably. Yeah, it would have been fun if Herath was bowling against the current Indian lineup, though, who can't play spin for nuts. I'm sure his record would have improved in leaps and bounds.
And tying back to the Ranji, one of the things that I do watch very carefully, Nitin, in the Ranji, I think, and we should do a Ranji roundup perhaps every week if possible in the next few weeks as it winds up. The fast bowling stocks are doing really well. There's so many good fast bowlers around. Batting, especially opening batting, right? I think there's a richness of talent over there, and we should soon start looking at some of the openers as one down and maybe even 3 down batsmen and so on in the future. But the thing that really shocks and surprises me is the spin department, looking pretty bleak, pretty bleak.
Yeah.
And this current, there are some good players coming through that I'm looking at, but not looking extremely promising at all.
Yeah, I mean, if Jayanti Yadav is your fourth choice, so that clearly tells.
Yeah, the cupboard is quite barren. Thankfully, there is Ashwin and Jadeja, and it's just a steep fall. And Akshar, should be said, and it's a steep fall after that.
Speaking of Ashwin and Jadeja, the ICC came out with the latest rankings for the top all-rounders, and Jadeja is now the number one ranked all-rounder in the world. And the crazy part is Ashwin is number 3, right? And you're looking at this list and you're saying, oh my God, when is the last time ever that 2 of India's spinners are in the all-rounder list and they're ranked 1 and 3 in the world? And I think 2 is Ben Stokes, if I'm not wrong. So it's ridiculous what's going on right now with India.
I think the right way to ask that question is, when was the last time India had an all-rounder in the top 10? Whether spinner or not. I think after Kapil Dev, we've had many next Kapil Devs. And ultimately, I think India has given up in the effort to find the next Kapil Dev and got 2 spinning all-rounders. We are not going to get fast bowling all-rounders. The Irfan Pathan dream is over, and we have 2 spinning
in another 6 months, you'll see Shardul Thakur in that list as well. So if he's not on it already.
He has a list of his own. I mean, there's a separate list, the Shardul of ICC, and it has just one name. So. We should talk about the other test series that has been going on. Pakistan are hosting Australia for the first time since 1998. The pitches that have been rolled out for this series will make sure that Australia don't go back to Pakistan for another 24 years. There have been 6 days of play so far. We are in the second test. The second test kicked off yesterday. In 6 days of play, 17 wickets have fallen. So that's less than 3 wickets per day. Imam ul Haq has 2 centuries. Usman Khwaja got a century and a 97. The only surprising thing is that Babar Azam and Steve Smith are yet to score 100 so far in this series. What's going on, guys?
On that note, a quick segue to a shairi by our friend Cartographer.
That Babar Azam must be kicking himself for getting run out for 36 on what can only be charitably described as a national highway of a pitch. That got me thinking, this wouldn't be the first time that someone named Babar has had trouble because somebody else prepared a Grand Trunk road. Ek din pitch, ek din highway, iska naam Sadak-e-Azam. Ek din pitch, ek din highway, iska naam Sadak-e-Azam. 36 bana ke out ho gaye, aapka naam Babar Azam.
So I'll start by saying 17 wickets fell in 6 days of cricket. 16 wickets fell in 1 day of cricket in Bangalore. That's the contrast we're working with. I have some sympathy for the curators in Pakistan. They've not had the opportunity to prepare test pitches. They're probably a little, I don't know, we're reading too much into this, but perhaps they're a bit low on confidence that they want to come away with a draw rather than a big loss to a good team. And Australia is today a very good team. They're coming into being a very good team, in my view. So I think I wouldn't blame it too much on or laugh too much at the cricket establishment in Pakistan. Maybe they went a bit too safe to prepare pitches that might give them a draw. And of course, these days in the World Championships ranking and the point system, you get penalized for a draw as well. So it's not as if they're going to come away, looking really good in the points table. But that probably matters less to them than the fact that they just had a series back at home, probably escaped with 2 draws, and then we'll see normalcy return. I do like the balance of the Pakistan team, by the way. It's not as well. I think they will do well in the next 4 or 5 years or so.
I mean, I just think it's going to be a really boring series. I'm looking at the score right now. The first test was boring. This is the second test. As we speak, as we are recording this podcast, it's day 2, session 1, and Australia are at 275 for 3 at a current run rate of 2.8, and it is so boring. Okay. The most exciting part was Labuschagned getting run out, which was great because I saw a lot of memes of Labuschagned sitting there in the dressing room looking at the video and people putting on the this thing saying no run. Okay. That's quite nice.
Labuschagned himself retweeted one of those. Yes, that was a no-run. In fact, the most exciting thing about this series has been Manas Labuschagned, both on and off the field. I think he has kept the social media for this series alive. And we will link this tweet out in the show notes. We wanted to talk about this a couple of weeks back when it came out. Back in Australia, while preparing for this series, and Labuschagned, as we all know, takes his cricket very seriously, so he got into the zone to try and prepare for what he thought are going to be spitting dust bowls that he will encounter in Pakistan. What he did was, let me describe what he did. So he rolled out this mat in his backyard. Right? It's a regular mat, a practice mat. He then took pieces of aluminium and metal, right, which he pasted randomly on this mat at different points, different parts of the mat. And he batted on this pitch. His logic being, when the ball pitches on the metal, it will skid. And if it lands on the mat, it will grip and turn. And this way I can practice for whatever I will encounter in Pakistan. Guys, this I think PGK, you had an evocative take on this video a while back. Why don't you regale the audience with it?
No, I was just saying how basically the way how Labuschagned was like doing it was he put a bat, then he put some landmines on it, then he put some cow dung on it, then he put like, okay, whatever I think is going to be there in Pakistan, I'm going to put all of that on this bat and say, okay guys, you bowl it. And the best part was he actually did very stuff where he took like these mattresses and put it in front of the glass windows on the side because he would keep hitting, right? So I know, wow, even Labuschagned is like, how do I make sure I don't break the glass in my house? These are all things that he is thinking about while practicing. His family must have like given up on him. Marnus, you can't do this, Marnus. You're like breaking all the glass. Okay, we will now complain to police. Oh, okay, sorry. I will put like mattresses all over. But yeah, it's quite weird. I mean, I think it'll probably help him a little bit in India. In fact, somebody had made this joke after seeing yesterday's match in Bangalore, saying that, guys, who put Labuschagne's mat out in Bangalore in Chinnaswamy? Guys, who did that? Okay.
It's strange that he went and thought so much, that they give spin and all that. Neither do they have pitchers that spin, neither do they have bowlers that spin. There is no concept of spin or offer from Pakistan at all. This poor guy practiced for something and got nothing in return.
Yeah, he in fact pasted dead animals, I think, as you mentioned, PGK. The only dead animals on the pitches are the roadkill, which is the bowlers who are bowling on those pitches. This entire series might be a joke on Labuschagned. It's possible that, Ramesh Raja and all the other senior people in PCB saw this tweet. Hey, look at this fellow. He's preparing for this series, doing all this crazy stuff. You know what? Let him come. We will give him national highways.
Yeah, I can imagine a conversation between Ashwin and Jadeja saying, boss, the only person in the Indian cricket team that actually spins is Jayant Yadav and he's not playing.
Seriously. So the funniest, so the tweet gets funnier, right? So he tweeted these funny videos of him playing on this pitch, and David Warner responded with, "You need a hobby." To which Labuschagned then responded, "Thinking of taking up dancing on TikTok." Thoughts? Which was like the best comeback ever. Right? So we are all thankful.
Amazing comeback. Given Warner is singing Hindi songs on TikToks, isn't he? Isn't that what
Telugu.
he's doing?
Now that he's not with Sunrisers, he might. I think he's not with Sunrisers now. Yeah, so he might change his language going forward. But yeah, Telugu. In fact, the first time I saw the famous Pushpa meme was actually David Warner on social media. This gives you some idea of what I follow on social media.
Speaking of which, this brings me to my pet peeve, and it's a continuation of the ICC all-rounder rankings that have come out, and Jadeja is like number 1, and even Akash Chopra is like, why does this guy not have an A+ contract? He should have an A+ contract along with Kohli and with Rohit and Jasprit. And at this point in time, I'm going to ask on this podcast, who is Ravindra Jadeja's PR manager, and can they please fire him already? It has been a while. Can you imagine what he would have been if he had like a half decent, or even maybe he doesn't care about it, but if he had a half decent PR this thing behind him, he could have easily been propelled into something way beyond what he is right now. Like if you think about
if he had Cheteshwar Pujara's PR manager's intern, he would have done better.
No, that's it. Sir, please, Cheteshwar Pujara's PR manager we know is cricket4.com. So let's not go there. But
oh, shots fired.
No, but I think that if you look at someone like even a Kohli, even a Rohit, even Ashwin, like these people are very savvy in the way they create their entire this thing. And the only thing you know about Jadeja is that Pushpa meme. That's it. His Twitter account has not been updated in a while. His Instagram is like, whatever.
He's doing funny stuff with horses. Yeah, all his social media posts are horses. Yeah,
Horses.
but he should follow horses for
the thing is, right, if Dhoni hadn't sirred him in his acceptance speech at the end of a test or one day, or I can't remember where it was, I mean, there was the sir thing happening already on Twitter, and Dhoni made it public. If he hadn't sirred him, Jadeja would have suffered even more in terms of lack of social media activity and presence and so on, right? So,
by the way, he hates Sir. By the way, so we at work we did a live stream with Jadeja last year, and he categorically told us, "I will not take any questions on Sir because I find it irritating that people keep calling me Sir." So yeah. He's an interesting character in cricket, and probably the most improved cricketer in the last
very much so.
5
By the way, can we come back to the Pakistan series and the Pakistan-Australia series?
So much fun to discuss over there. Yes.
The only interesting thing that's happened in 6 days of cricket, now 7 days of cricket, and many other days, there are two things interesting that happened. One was Alex Carey walking past a swimming pool and just falling into it. It's the funniest thing. It was the most interesting thing that happened. And the other thing was Manish Labuschagned's picture of dal roti that he was eating. So go for it.
It was the worst picture of dal and roti I've ever seen. I'm not a fan of the dish, but even by my standards, that just did not look appetizing at all.
Guys, that was a properly viral thing, and there were some amazing responses that have come to that tweet. Okay, so first question, somebody co-tweeted and said from Pakistan, this Pakistan fan, my man Marnus is here to reaffirm that the real Pakistan cricket board has actually kept all of Australians at jail. Okay, that's the first. The second, and it's a terrible response. Is this guy says Pakistanis can't even feed them properly. They can't give them pitches as well. Even a prisoner can get better quality meals than this in India. This is Indians also jumping on the bandwagon to give an India-Pakistan twist also. So it was a horrible thing. The chapatis looked like they were yesterday's handkerchief, and it is just water that is run through dal. It is not even like dal, it's water. Oh man, it's horrid.
Actually, you know what? I saw that and said Steve Waugh's handkerchief at the end of his career looked better than that chapati.
Oh my God.
But, you go to Pakistan, a place which is renowned for some amazing food. And people like Sehwag and I think Irfan Pathan and Lakshman and so many other people have...
Sehwag feasted on Pakistan, yes.
Sehwag talks a lot about the markets that he wandered through in Pakistan and gorged on some amazing food. And to get a picture of dal roti was a bit much.
It's specifically the sort of picture, right? That roti actually looks like the pitch from Bangalore, right? It looks pockmarked. Whatever. That dal is literally water. The roti is floating on the dal. Lots of people are like, get another plate for the roti, right? Like, what is this? Are you in hospital? Are you in jail? What are you eating? It's crazy. Yeah.
And I thought he was trying to make a point, because I don't know if you read the tweet carefully. It said dal and roti for lunch too, which means already they had given dal and roti in the morning. And then they gave the same dal and roti again. So I think he's trying to be like a satirical thing. He says delicious at the end of it, because they were like, they won't know the difference. We just give the same thing, add little water to it. It's horrid, man. So sad for them.
Amazing.
There you go. And then meanwhile, Carey jumps into a pool, and that's the most hilarious incident that happened in that series.
Hilarious video.
Oh wow. So this series where the first test match ended in a draw, we don't know how the second test match will shape, but day one is not promising. We have also had England and West Indies play out a draw. It suddenly feels like we have had 2 draws in the space of 1 week. After I don't know when the last time a test match was a boring draw, right? And these 2 were boring draws. So the key question from me is the bowling era over?
Too early to call. Too early to go. I don't think the bowling era would.
Yeah, I was being facetious, but
yes.
It's okay. India are going to show up in England in a couple of months for finish that last series. Then we will talk about whether the bowling era is over or not.
That's true.
So just watching Bumrah, although he didn't get wickets, he didn't get a truckload of wickets yesterday. He could have got many more than the two that he got.
Amazing bowling.
Amazing.
bowling.
That the control. Of course, Shami did bowl well too, but the control that he showed, and he was just playing around with the players there. So yeah, on a pitch like Bangalore.
On this note, I will just quickly share something that I saw on Twitter by Ritesh Banglani, who was at the stadium yesterday and is a huge cricket fan. And he said something that I really found interesting, which he says that, and I'm going to read it out. There's been a fundamental shift in Indian cricket in the last 4 to 5 years. I've been watching Test cricket in India since 1987, and action time, in quotes, has always been India's batting innings. The crowd was more alert, followed the play ball by ball, cheered louder. The bowling innings was only the preparation for the main event. The crowd appreciated individual spells, but there wasn't the sense of a collective hunt. This was when you went on a stroll, chatted with friends, stretched out and caught a wink. The action was peripheral, but not anymore. Now the bowling is the main event. There is a buzz around the stadium, the expectation of a hunt. The batting is the build-up to the climax of the attack. 10 overs into India's innings, we were taking bets on how many wickets specific Indian bowlers will take. Of course, this 5-man attack is by far the best our generation has seen. Maybe the spin quartet plus couple question mark was better, but I doubt it. But it's only partly about the quality of bowling. It's the emphasis on the bowler as a hero, the doer. This is Kohli's gift to Indian cricket.
Brilliant. Very nicely done. Well played.
The man of the match in the West Indies England Test match was this is an episode for cricket pronunciations. Nkrumah Bonner. How do you pronounce Nkrumah? Is the N silent or is it
I
Nkrumah?
believe so. I believe that Nkrumah. Yeah.
So we've spoken about Yash Dhull, we've spoken about Dal Roti, now we're talking about Kurma. So it's cricket is the side dish to our lives.
Is this the Bonner of the Chittagong match fame? Bonner Mayer of the guy, the massive chase.
It was, but Bonner wasn't the guy, right? That day, it was. I think it was Joshua Da Silva, with of course Kyle Mayers. I might be wrong. I might be fully wrong.
Okay.
But yeah, no, Bonner has been around for a while. I've always wondered how do you pronounce that first name, but yeah, I'll go with Nkrumah Bonner. Yeah.
And you also should note that England should be sort of pussyfooting because they will still have the scars from their last tour, and this is a much poorer team. I mean, they're opening with Zach Crawley, so this is a significantly poorer team. That last time they travelled, they had a pretty good team, and then they got mauled by West Indies with Jason Holder being all over the place. I think they lost by some 300 runs and some 10 wickets or something, if I remember the first two tests, and lost the series. So the last match was just like one dead rubber, which they won.
You know, England, you're talking about scars. England's test team has scars all over its body. I don't think they can recall scars which they got ages back. They've been getting battered all over the place.
Yeah,
but
so
there was one funny thing, right? So Zach Crawley scored 100 in this test match. Somebody said, hey, why is he not being called Virat Crawley already? Oh, because he scored 100. Sliding at Virat over there.
Exactly. So the mauling that they received at the hands of the West Indies in the previous series is one issue, but I don't think they've still recovered from the Ashes thrashing that they've got in
The
Australia.
Thrashes.
The thrashes. It was just terrible to watch that team completely. I mean, they came in seemingly in a good shape, and they left. The opening batting was completely in disarray. Everything was completely gone, right? So even Root, who was in the last year the bedrock of batting in England against all players in all situations, he had also imploded completely. So they're really trying to rebuild from a very poor position.
They've taken a mauling in the West Indies in the past. They've taken thrashes from Australia. This time they'll probably get a Virasamy per mauling from the West Indies. Okay, so that then brings us to the end of this edition of the Bits and Pieces Cricket Podcast. We will leave a bunch of links in the show notes for the various random things that we spoke about. And we will also plug all our social media handles. Request you all to keep listening to the Bits and Pieces Podcast, subscribe to it, like it, share feedback. Look out for Tony Sebastian and myself, during this test match in Bangalore. We will try and hold banners for our podcast, maybe with a QR code that you can scan. That would be peak Bengaluru. Until then, until next week, it's goodbye from all of us. Say bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, and all good best wishes to the Indian women's cricket team in the World Cup. Hopefully,
Yes,
they do well.
next week we should
and,
try to talk about that.
We will.
Absolutely.
indeed.
Jitendra by Jitendra.
All right, guys. Goodbye.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.